You know what they say about the best laid plans? Well, the idea was to go to Oxford Products and film a one-to-one with the boss where we chat about how the company started making new products like the Hinterland textiles, which have done so well in our testing. What had changed there? Simple. When I got there, the director had other ideas. He thought it'd be great to speak to a lot of the people behind the design of everything they sell. He was right, of course, but it meant I didn't have the mics to properly cover everyone. So the sound isn't perfect here, and I didn't have time to find great locations to shoot. The place is massive, and I was having to run around trying to get everything I could and trying to get B-roll and everything. So keeping track of your footage and audio, as well as trying to make sure you get answers to the questions you wanted to ask, is never easy. You know, when you're filming this stuff yourself, it gets tough, but this was one of the tougher ones I've done. But look, that's enough apologising. What matters is that this trip was a real eye-opener for me, and I hope you'll find it interesting too. So as always, grab a drink and settle in, because these videos celebrate British industry and they're never sponsored or paid for. But I hope they'll always be fascinating.
My name's Henry Rivers Fletcher. I'm the marketing director of Oxford Products, and I've been here man and boy for the last 25 years. So I've seen the company grow from a small, ambitious business into a large, ambitious business. So before I joined the business, back in the early days, we had quite modest beginnings. We were one man in a van selling top boxes, fiberglass, white fiberglass top boxes. The business developed into fairings, and then when it became obvious that that was a relatively limited market, the company broadened out into wider accessories, and the big break came with locks. So Oxford motorcycle and back then bicycle locks too were one of the big drivers behind the growth of the business. And then we just evolved into more and more accessories and grew, and now we are what we are today, a £50 million business with a huge range of motorcycle and bicycle products and fingers in various other pies like marine and outdoor leisure.
So what's the biggest part of the business? You know, is it motorcycling or cycling now?
Yeah, motorcycle remains between 80 and 85% of our turnover.
Right.
And the rest is made up of mostly bicycle, but also marine, outdoor leisure. We provide white label services for certain companies in other markets because we're quite good at designing products and manufacturing them.
A £50 million business. It's no surprise then really that you see Oxford pretty well in every store you go to. But how did you get to that point? Why are you... I can't think of any motorbike shops I've been in where there's not an Oxford rack. What are you doing? Well,
some of the things we've just continued to do that we always did. So even back in 95, 96, 97, when I was new to the business, one of the brilliant things we did was provide these point of sale displays to all of our dealerships, and it just gave a great platform for our products to sell themselves. And we've just evolved that, just done it better over the years. And in some ways we do things quite differently. So, you know, hands up, we started out by selling rebadged products from factories who are producing really great products, but we wanted our brand on them, and we'd package them up as Oxford products and sell them. That's what we did. Over the years, that business model has evolved quite dramatically in the last 15 years, so that the vast majority of the products that we develop under the Oxford brand are now completely designed in-house.
Well, I think that kind of brings me to the main reason I wanted to kind of come and do this and chat to you and see what Oxford was really about, was because I remember that time at EICMA, might have been about 2019, when you launched the Advanced Rider series.
Yeah.
Would that have been about 2019-ish?
Yeah.
And I remember you kind of standing there saying, like, this is our new, which one would it have been? The Mondial?
Yeah, it would have been the Mondial.
And I mean, thinking, this looks really good. And Oxford, no offence, but Oxford gear has always been, it's served a purpose. It's been some good clothing that did a reasonable job at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
But I suppose it would be fair to say that it wasn't a name that people are, that's like the ultimate in clothing, that's the best you can find. But with the Hinterland, it was, I've used that extensively in really bad weather, and it's outstanding. It's one of the few textile clothing that we've said we've put a recommended label on. To us, that's our top end, is from Bike Social. Yeah. That's what I want to know, is how you've created this product that is so outstandingly good, yet at a relatively affordable price.
Yeah, so the range that you saw in 2019 was just the culmination of sort of several years of development. We'd learnt our trade through some very simple products. We'd then launched the fantastically successful Montreal product range, and that gave us a wonderful basis for producing more technical garments, which is what you're referring to, the advanced rider range. That next step into more advanced rider wear is the result of us investing in more talent, more outside talent, bringing in people from different industries with very varied backgrounds into our team. So, for example, we have people now who are from the high street. We can then use high street techniques and high street know-how to source products better, quicker, work better with factories, be more organised in our processes. We've also brought in people who've got experience with sporting wear brands
from high street fashion brands.
From the high street, yeah, absolutely. So the team will be made up of product designers with all kinds of different backgrounds from the likes of Boohoo and Primark and G-Star, Adidas, Puma. Wow. We cover almost every well-known fashion brand somewhere within our team right now.
Yeah.
And so we have designers, we have garment technologists and technicians who make the product makeable. I haven't come up with a better word for this yet. But it's all very well designing a product that looks beautiful, but if it's not makeable, if you can't make it, if it's not viable, then it's of no use. So we have the architects who are the product designers, and then we have the civil engineers who are the garment techs. Yeah. And then in between you've got developers who provide the communication to the factory of all that information that we need to convey. So we don't have our whole team here, of course, and we've built up quite a large team over the last 10 years. But a great example of what we need to develop our clothing is right with me. So from a clothing designer, who's like the architect, to the garment technologist, who is like the civil engineer, makes everything practical, and the developer, who makes it all happen in between, make sure the factory produces what we want. So these guys are sort of represent the process by which we produce this range that we've got in front of us, and they're the guys who've dragged us up from sort of nothing in the apparel scene to top 3 in the UK. So
looking over there, you've got something marked up with chalk over here. Am I right in thinking so? Everything is designed in here. You're not picking stuff out and being offered something and then.
No, that doesn't. I mean, that can work, but it doesn't work for us. And when you're trying to get ahead in this marketplace, a very competitive marketplace, you need to be controlling the entire product process from start to finish. So we conceive the products that we want, we design them, we engineer them, we develop them, we get them past the necessary CE standards, and then we put them to market. So what you see on the left is a garment in development.
So can you talk us through what all these marks mean and what you're doing there?
The gold lines on this sample show that the garment's been restyled. So the webbing tape that's on the side here, that's been deleted, and these gold lines are the new seams, and the front yoke has been dropped down to this position. So this is all like restyling. This garment could have fitted quite nicely, but we've restyled it as it's been drawn onto the garment, and we take pictures of this and send it back to the factory with measurements to show what we've restyled, how it's been done, where it needs to be lowered to, or whatever.
And were you saying that's what some of those yellow marks are on that chart you've got? It's looking at every change you're making. You're doing several iterations of those changes.
These are all the changes for the next approval sample. This is the submission now, and we're making these changes for the next sample, and we'll be sort of like our size chart is amended to show these positions, and that's what we're looking to make sure the factory rectified.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we go again. We get another approval sample.
So I was going to say just then about how we can send the initial design off, and we'll get the first proto back, and it sometimes can be really, to the drawing, and it's what you thought you wanted, and then actually once it's on the body, you see like the seams in real life, the design brought to life, and it's not right. So then you can make all these amendments, or it might be a CE issue where you need to change a seam because actually it's in a zone 1 area.
Yeah.
And you've caught it quite early on, which is a really good thing.
That's interesting you say about CE, because obviously your Hinterland's a AA rated jacket, isn't it? It's the Mondial is A, and I see you've got a Mondial 2.0 there. I don't know, are we allowed to see that yet?
No, not really.
How has CE affected what you're doing? Well, has it had you made you change the way you work, or do you see it as something to aim for to build more custom?
Yeah, so we really have to risk assess right at the beginning of the design stage now, because we want to get to the best rating we can, so we need to start fabric research sort of at the design stage.
Do you see those standards as a selling point almost?
I mean, I just don't know why you wouldn't want to get to the best standard you can, so we kind of work quite early on to try and figure out how we can do that. If we can make a textile jacket AAA, why wouldn't we?
Do you think you're going to do that? You see that? That's
Yeah.
something. Yeah?
That's one of those things you can't go too far into detail on, because it's not been done massively, and especially the sort of like products that we work on, it's a bit of a niche, especially at like a compelling price point. So it's in the works. Yeah.
I think that's interesting to hear though, because as a brand, you're making relatively affordable kit that is available everywhere. You've almost got a captive audience, haven't you? People in shops will know Oxford and they'll see that stuff. And your Mondial, was you saying that's one of your best-selling pieces of clothing?
Yeah.
So it's already working, and I think the original Mondial was only A-rated, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you as a brand want to do higher.
We sort of set like a minimum for a certain price point to be AA rated, and you get outliers in that. Like sometimes styling's like the highest importance, or use case is like city use, in which case it's a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally you want like AA. AAA would be great. I think you will see more of that in Oxford's range as like time goes on and our expertise sort of builds.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The idea is to research, how we can make a AA or a AAA less bulky than the originals that were coming out, where it's Kevlar lined, or it's really heavy and hot. Like, how can we improve that and stay within a good price point?
Something we noticed earlier when we were walking around, we've got this is the inside of a Mondial, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And that's the inside of a Hinterland. And there must be a huge amount of work going into choosing the materials you work with, because that's a 2-layer laminate, which is more prone to wear. It doesn't mean it's going to fall apart, but it's not. A 3-layer laminate, or the tri-laminate as you call it, has that scrim layer that gives extra protection. All of that must cost. So what's Oxford's thinking for where it's positioning itself in the market?
Well, that's a really big question. It's an evolving question. But we have a basic philosophy that we want to offer good, better, best. Good, better, best. Never less than good. And that puts a floor underneath the price points that we can deliver, particularly with CE approved clothing nowadays. We don't have any lack of ambition when it comes to price points. So we believe that we have to earn those price points and work our way up to them. So every year you will see more technology, more expertise going into our garments in order to earn those price points. And we currently sit around the £300 price point for a textile jacket. Next year that'll be 400, the year after it'll be 500. And that's why we have this big team of very talented individuals to take us there, to earn us those price points. There's a lot of work that has to go into that, not just the materials or the CE side of things. There's the functionality, there's the customer profiling, there's the brand building. There needs to be added value in the brand in lots of different ways. It doesn't come automatically. It comes through having a huge team of designers, engineers, marketeers, salespeople, and customer services who give us that profile that earns those price points.
I think it's going to be interesting how you all seem to work together. What you're doing here will cross over with, say, somebody designing an oxidizer just downstairs. It did strike me when I come in here of just how much is done here. But I want to pull back to something about CE standards. You're saying, it really surprised me that you seem so eager to be going for AAA. The thing is, you make and sell various leather kit as well, so race leathers and things like that. With AAA as it is, you're kind of creating this playing field where you've got textiles that potentially, in a consumer's eyes, may be seen as being as safe as leathers. Do you think the standards could evolve even? So say you had a quadruple A, is that something you'd be like, yep, we'll go for that?
Has to be.
Yeah. Why
Has to
would
be.
you want the best?
Yeah, look at Sol Secure.
Yeah.
With their locks, used to be the gold standard was the greatest, the best one.
True.
Now
Yeah.
there's diamond.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a 4A C standard at some point, I'd be gobsmacked.
Yeah.
And no, of course there will be. There will be. I think the challenge at the moment, the challenge you inferred earlier on, is about the different product types and how you might be able to meet a AAA standard with something that looks quite casual, quite lightweight,
Yeah.
when the same standard is met by the toughest, strongest race suit in the world. And I think that's where you've just got to understand there are different users, there are different
Yeah.
user categories. The guy who is commuting into town, he still wants the best safety possible. And we've got to try to strive to provide that in a garment that works for his commute.
Yeah.
In the same way that the guy who is doing a track day absolutely expects the highest level of security while he's doing 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We've just got to try to make sure all of those people have access to that same level of safety.
I think one of our biggest aims is that we want it to be accessible for everybody's need, really. So, like Henry just said, why wouldn't the urban, rider want something more casual in a AAA, along with the adventure rider?
Yeah.
It's just giving people the option.
Yeah. Giving them that choice.
Yeah,
So much better than a pair of flip-flops and a t-shirt,
and
Absolutely.
some Crocs.
which I keep seeing repeatedly at the moment.
Kevlar Crocs.
Kevlar Crocs.
You mentioned before that your teams work together, and I know you've got some testing stuff. So how do the testing teams? Who are your testing teams, and what other parts of development are there?
So what we can develop up here are what we call the soft goods, and downstairs our engineering team are developing our hard goods. Now, a lot of apparel needs some hard goods attached to them for them to work, be it armour or trims, pullers and so on and so forth. So that's one area where the two departments intermingle. Engineering feeds in some hard components, but also engineering is responsible for all of our testing across the board. So they will help this team by testing all the materials for tear resistance, seam strength, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Weathering testing, and that's where the overlap occurs. So we are just really one big team. It's just that one bunch looks after the hard bits and one looks after the soft bits. If the team upstairs are developing our soft goods, this office and these engineers are developing our hard goods, for want of a better word. They'll be operating under the same process as we discussed before. They will have a product brief, which they will need to turn into a real product. It all starts with building a model in 3 dimensions, CAD. That model will be developed to the point where we can start testing it using finite element analysis, if you like, simulated testing. The model has to prove itself, has to prove that it will deliver and that it will handle all the stresses that are placed upon it by what we perceive as being expected use. And if it passes all those tests, we can then press print, and it will pop out in our 3D printing suite, giving us an object to evaluate, decide whether we like what we see, whether it is a good representation of what we see on screen, and whether it'll function, or we think it will function. Most of the time we can test the product under normal real-world conditions. We can fit it to a bike and go out and test it.
So all of you are riding, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you come back in. So you genuinely, every company's going to give this same old line, isn't it? Well, it's 5 bikers, 4 bikers, but just seeing that, which I guess is a charger up there.
Yep.
That you've done that all in house. Circuit boards. So you developing the circuit boards, making the choices of components.
Yeah.
Because I've got to be honest, I'd assumed that things like charge and that, you bought in a charger and you made a new box.
Yeah, we just slap our logo on it.
Stuck your logo on it. Yeah. And I know that's probably offensive to you guys now. I know what you do, but this is how it works. Is this how?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. You can do what you're implying. You can simply go to a factory pick a product off the shelf, maybe change the colour, slap your logo on it, and that's perfectly acceptable. That's what most companies do, and they sell lots and lots of products, and that's fine. But it means you can't go very far. It gives you a very low ceiling in terms of the capabilities of the product, how competitive you can be in the marketplace, how you can upscale or improve your product against everybody else's. So effectively, you end up in a price war. We're not interested in that. We want to be developing unique products with unique functionality, unique value. That's how we see ourselves as an added value company.
I see a hot grip on there as well on your screen. How big are hot grips? Most people probably know Oxford
We're
hot grips.
about this big.
Are they a big seller for you?
Yeah, hot grips are our number one product worldwide. Yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
And so there, again, I think probably a lot of people would have assumed that they're Oxford branded heated grips, but they're not, are they?
No, and that's a particular example where there is nothing like our product in the world. We've developed that from scratch since the 1990s, mid-90s. I mean, not that what you see today on the screen is anything like the original product, but it's always been a very bespoke item that we've developed year after year after year, and it's been the product that received probably the most investment out of anything we've ever done. And that's probably why people prefer an Oxford hot grip to anything else. What you'll see here is just one extra iteration of that famous hot grip.
Obviously, you're designing all your products here. Did you mention that your display material, is that designed by you guys?
First of all, we want to produce the right product, but we want to make sure it's displayed in such a way that people will want to go and look at it and try it and hopefully buy it. So we develop all the display systems that make our products sell in stores. Some of those are completely bespoke. For example, we've developed a bespoke display stand just for our paddock stands. Nobody else in the world goes to that kind of length to sell their paddock stands, but for us it's very important that a good product is presented well. So yeah, that's just one example. But everything we produce, everything we put into stores is designed by us and sourced by us.
And no, actually we didn't see it upstairs, didn't see that department, but the packaging and everything is done internally as well.
There really isn't anything about the product story that isn't developed in-house.
Yeah.
We conceive the product, we design the product, we develop the packaging that holds the product, and then we design and source the display system that puts it on show. So yeah.
Can you just give us a brief idea of what happens from, where does it start? Is it one of you guys going, oh, I want a product that does so-and-so?
To an extent, yeah. So it can stem from us just going out on a bike and thinking that, oh, I wish I had a certain product, or you could be using a competitor's product and there may be some pitfalls in it and you might want to try and work out the issues from it. So then we'll come in, we'll have a chat about it, and sometimes we'll bring it up in product meetings, and then from there we'll then start discussing it and start sketching out ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say the exhaust shield's a really good product that we're bringing out.
Yeah.
And that's something that I burnt myself riding my bike, so we came back in and said, let's design a product that would stop that.
So what's all your backgrounds?
So I studied product design at Sheffield Hallam. Off the back of that, I then worked at Kenwood for a bit, doing food processes. Came here, had a passion for bicycles, which then formed into motorcycles. Caught the bug for it, and then got myself a motorcycle. And here we are today, really.
I was an industrial designer at Brunel, and then I did a lighting with the V&A. And then from V&A I went on to electrical design and then came here as well.
So I studied product engineering at London South Bank, and then I actually went into aquarium design and then came here, so I've now been here 7 years.
And so from here, you've come up with that initial idea, presumably it's just like back of a fact, packet up sketches, and then obviously you create there, you mentioned before, it goes into 3D printing, you're using laser sintered.
Yep, so we have a SLS and an SLA machine. So when we're finished here, we take the simulation data, which is our initial strength point. So that's our initial data point. Then we have our keyshot software. So the keyshot will then visualize it. And then that's us done here. And then we move on to testing. And that's using 3D prints to begin with.
Yeah.
So strength test on the 3D prints. And the SLS machine is about 90% the strength of an injection molded part. So we can create nylon 12 parts. We can glass fill them and we can carbon fibre fill them. So with that we can then get a decent idea of a tensile strength.
And that testing is something you're also doing in-house?
That's all in-house, so we have our test lab, so we can benchmark those 3D prints, and then from there samples and work through to production testing as well.
Right, well we're in the test lab, and this is something that is in relative terms quite new to us. When we really started getting heavily involved in product development, sort of certainly less than 20 years ago, we discovered that the bills for having our products tested externally were just going through the roof and weren't giving us the answers we really wanted. So we decided to take a deep breath and make the investment and bring all that testing equipment in-house. This is the second iteration of our test lab, so we had a slightly rougher and more ready test lab before in our previous building, but when we moved here we spec'd it out exactly as we wanted it, with all the correct dehumidifiers and air conditioning to make all the equipment work optimally. We've carried on investing in, I call them the toys, but the test equipment that enables us to rush forward our product development and just make better products quicker. So the first of them is a tensile tester. This is a big destruction machine that will pull and push up to 5,000 kilograms. And our chief engineer is probably best placed to describe why we'd need such a range of strengths to test.
Yeah, because you've got buttons on there, presumably, haven't you? Or...
Yes, so there is, at the moment we have buttons on there. So with this tensile tester, we can change the tolerance of our testing for smaller items. So you change the load cell. So currently there is a 500 kilo load cell in there, which we would use for testing things like buttons. So we would have these delivered from the factory, and we would test down. We can test down to 0.03 of a gram in force using this tensile tester. So a human hair could be pulled, and we could check the force taken to pull them apart. So with these, this is probably the smallest we'd do. A single one of these fails, that's a whole pair of jeans gone. So
what do you test those to? What kind of force are you going to try and then on?
So that would vary depending on the gene, on the product.
Yeah.
So these are coming out around 30 to 40 newtons on a button, depending on which fabrics it's riveted to.
And I know this from earlier when I was having a look around, but that rig you've got there, you made that as well. I mean, obviously that's a testing rig, but what's holding the buttons? You machined that over in the other bit.
So all of our jigs and fixtures, the attachments for this machine are made in-house. So we have a lathe and a mill, so we can make all of the basic fixtures. The only ones we buy in are for CE testing. So this jaw here is actually the jaw that's used for the CE tear and seam tests. So we will do all of our CE clothing tests in-house before we send them out.
And that's except abrasion testing, presumably, isn't it?
Abrasion testing, we don't have the capabilities at the moment to do that in-house.
Obviously you're doing that when you're developing something, but what about quality control down the line? Are you
so this
stuff later?
Starts after our simulation on the CAD. So the simulation data is compared to the tensile test data here, using anything from 3D prints through to the sample, then all the way through to the first production, where we test every first production, and then after that we go on to test batches. So these again are batch tests from our denim range.
And do you do any testing of stuff like out of the box? Are you pulling products at all?
One of the biggest ones is paddock stands. So we've got paddock stands here. So they're a product where we consider it to be a high risk item, in that it's an expense if a bike falls off of a paddock stand. So they're one where we test quite regularly straight out of the box.
And that's interesting, you've seen, because that looks a pretty elaborately made paddock stand. And sorry to say, but I had an Oxford stand many years ago that I ended up having to weld up because it was quite flimsy. What changed? When did you change?
So the paddock stands is one of our older products. Would have been an off-the-shelf product that we bought in, whereas the recent stands, even our lower-end stands, have been completely redeveloped from the original off-the-shelf version, redesigned by us, testing in here. And our weakest stand, our big black paddock stand, which people assume is an off-the-shelf stand, has been completely redeveloped by us, tested in here and averages 1.7 tonnes on its strength testing.
So it's even that, I mean, that brand's been about a long time, isn't it? You know, that model.
Yeah.
Has that kind of evolved? Have you, since you've been doing your own testing, have you started making changes that make things...
Yeah, so all of the older products have all gone through CAD. So all of our old products that we didn't originally have CAD, we have modelled them up, we have simulated them, we've found where we could add material, remove material, increase strength, and we've redeveloped them based on that. Yeah. And this machine is what allows us to test all of that to confirm our findings from the computer.
There's clearly a lot of work, design work, and obviously testing has gone into that. Are you having to change perceptions in some respects? We said about the clothing as well.
It's not something you do by design, you do it by the graft that goes into the product. So we go about our business trying to make the best products. That information will get out into the world through people using it and word of mouth and terrific product reviews on Bike Social and places like that. So there's a huge job to change people's perceptions, but we can't bring everyone here and show them what we do. God, if we could, it'd be amazing. But we didn't have the crowd control capacity. So instead, we've got to let our products do the talking. That's kind of always been that way, and I think it always will be. We do have an advantage in that we're well distributed, we're available. You'll find us in all your best motorcycle shops. So that isn't a problem. And so yeah, we'll let the products do the talking, really.
One of the other tests we do is the perspirometer test. So this here is an ISO standard test. It uses a 1 kilogram weight that compresses a multi-fibre strip, which comprises of diacetate, bleached cotton, polyamide, polyester, acrylic and wool. And that is compressed in this contraption here, which is then soaked and placed in an incubator at 37 degrees for 48 hours. And you then take your multi-fibre strip, and you can see the failed colours on here. And this is compared against colour change grayscales and cross-staining grayscales. So these give it a grade from 1 to 5, and that allows us to benchmark all of our fabrics and have a database of fabrics to be used.
Now that, I've been thinking, well, that's gloves, but actually it's about not getting it on your clothes, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is everything for us. These fabrics could be used on a jacket, which ends up on a shirt collar. So you've got your white shirt, turns red on your way to work. Could be a bike seat, gets stained by the seat of your pants. Yeah. Could be luggage and leaching into lacquer on a motorbike. Yeah. So it deals with all fabrics, so we can't, and we have no control over what they come into contact with. Here is our QLab weathering tester, and this accelerates weathering by 35 to 1. So in here we have material plaques, and they could hold anything from bicycle cover to hard parts such as a clicker. Yep. And we also have hard parts throughout the centre, so larger parts that can't go onto the plaques will go into the centre, and these will go in here for 500 hours, and a 500-hour test is equivalent to 5 years in Florida, which is our benchmarking, or QLab's benchmarking for their machine. So they have a site in Florida that compares all different fabrics, and then that gives you a real-world result when you use this machine. For instance, this clicker has been in here since the start of the development, so that's now 2 years. So that's the equivalent of around 80 years that's heading to. So 80 years of real-world use would give you this product, which is a bit stiff, and again, the nylon's going a bit powdery, but other than that, still working. Some examples of failed product. So we've got some original samples of a brake reservoir cover. And this is the original colour, and then the exposed side, which has just finished its 500 hours, has completely degraded, and it's now falling apart.
So that's showing moisture and UV exposure, everything. Yeah. Because there's some anodised bits on there. Are you testing those? I've had anodised stuff before, not from Oxford, obviously. But I've had anodised stuff that has kind of the black's gone kind of brown.
For anodised components, we've got some here examples. We'll also go in here. So for anodised parts, it's one of those where the first sample you get from a new factory, you're likely to end up with a failure. Yeah. From then on, once you've tested it and sent them the test results, you'll never get another failure again. Yeah. So you get the failures where they're trying to cut corners and the anodising isn't as deep as you spec'd it, and then you end up with multiple coloured parts. But this is the most recent of our anodised mirrors, and you can see it's still black. So the other thing we do is compare our products to competitors' products. So here is an example of a cover. So the first cover is a competitor's product, and you can see the discoloration from the UV. And then the other cover is ours, and you can see there's no discoloration. That's not such an issue with the fact that the whole cover will discolour, so you won't notice it so much in use. The biggest issue is the fact that the PU coating on the underside is completely degraded. So this cover will no longer be UV resistant or water resistant.
Beware buying stuff cheap online.
We've seen how everything's developed and tested. Where is your stuff made? Where are you getting it all done?
The short answer is wherever is best to make it. Yeah. So, and that's a very vague answer. But the point is we have to operate across dozens and dozens of factories all over the world to bring together such a large collection. If you look around us at our product range, you realise that we have to be experts in every product category, from apparel and helmets through locks and luggage and things you bolt on the bike, electronics, etc., etc. So we have to be experts in lots of things, and the factories we source from have to be very varied. So all over the world is the short answer. I guess the question behind it is, how do you manage those factories, so many factories, and how do you monitor your products within those factories? And there is only one answer to that, which is get in them, be in the factories, visit them regularly. Now, the last couple of years has been a very difficult time on many levels. One of them is simply travel. We haven't been able to visit our factories as regularly as we'd like, but typically we'll be out in our factories 3 or 4 times a year. And that means we can have eyes on the ground, check working conditions, check the quality of the products that are coming off the line, and when we can't be out there ourselves, we have external quality control partners who do that for us. So obviously, a company that produces gloves is not the same company that produces helmets or tank pads, but it's even more in depth than that, because just take apparel as an example. We can't have 1 or 2 factories making our apparel, because a factory that makes a very simple garment cannot make a very complicated garment, and a factory that makes a very complicated garment can't make a very simple garment cheaply, or should I say, economically. So you have to have different factories for different products and different factories for different types of products within each category.
Right. And actually, that was something I noticed when I pulled apart the Hinterland, when I was doing the video about textiles recently. The tape sealing looked really, really neat for something that was, it's not cheap. And I don't want to use the cheap as in cheapening things, but it's relatively affordable. It is a good price range, especially for its performance. But the tape sealing was really good. So presumably you're picking a factory based on, they've got to prove to you that they're doing those certain kind of things.
Yeah, exactly that. So some factories have the correct equipment and know-how and staff, the personnel, to do certain processes, and others don't. So you just have to pick them very, very carefully.
I've got a mate who he owns a small bike shop, two-wheel centre in Harpenden. He's got Oxford. And when I was over there recently, he was saying how good Oxford is, and this isn't blowing smoke up your arse. And this is he was saying how great it is if a customer's got a problem with the returns. Is that something that you think is really key to your business and why you're everywhere?
It's quite fundamental, actually, because we only sell our products through one route, and that is shops, retailers. So they are our eyes and ears, they're our partners, colleagues, friends on the ground, and we need to make their life as easy as possible. It's as simple as that. And by doing so, we make the end user's life as easy as possible. So if you buy an Oxford product, you don't have to deal with us. You can deal with your local dealer who has all of our support. No quibble warranties were actually one of the first things I learned when I joined the business 25 years ago, this term, no quibble warranty. Well, what does that mean? It means that the dealer can make up their own mind whether the product should be subject to a return or a swap or a refund. They don't need us to make those decisions, and that just makes everybody's life in the chain much easier.
What are we going to see next from Oxford? Are you going to start making bikes?
It's the question we ask ourselves every day, and most of the time we come back with the same answer, which is more of the same, because we feel we're just scratching the surface in everything we do right now. We've got such a capability now to design and develop products that what you see of coming out of us right now is nothing compared to what we're capable of. So that's the first part of the answer. And then the second part of the answer is whatever opportunities come along. And we just keep our ears open. We listen to our guys, our teams, we listen to our customers. And if they say, we could really do with this product or this new category from you, we'll have a look, we'll have a go.